Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House at its next sitting resolve itself for this session into a committee to consider the supply to be granted to Her Majesty.
Honourable members, if all heard the motion, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carried. Continue, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to present a message from Her Honour the Lieutenant Governor.
Lieutenant Governor transmits herewith estimates fiscal year ending March 31st, 2014, supplement to the estimates fiscal year ending March 31st, 2014, and recommends the same to the Legislative Assembly. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the said message and estimates accompanying same be referred to the Committee of Supply.
Honourable members, you've all heard the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carried. Continue, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move, seconded by the Honourable Premier of British Columbia, that the Speaker do now leave the chair for the House to go into Committee of Supply.
Honourable members, you've all heard the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Oh, sorry, we don't put the motion at this point. Continue, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for almost a century and a half, this Legislative Assembly has served British Columbians by performing two functions fundamental to our parliamentary democracy. First, the passage of laws by which we seek to establish a civil society based upon the rule of law, where all citizens may expect to be treated equitably and justly, no matter who they are. And secondly, members of this Legislative Assembly, through debate and discussion, authorize the executive branch on behalf of the Crown to collect and spend the public's money. We call it the budget. Today begins the budget, or as we now refer to it, a 3-year fiscal planning process, made more interesting, admittedly, by virtue of the fact that before the full budget process is complete, British Columbians will have a direct opportunity to express their views in that great democratic shareholders meeting scheduled for May. Building the plan hasn't been easy. We have worked for many months to find the right balance of measures to support our economic recovery, to maintain support for the services people rely on every day, to respect the basic principle that government should not spend more of the taxpayers' money than it receives from the taxpayers. Getting things right has meant a lot of tough decisions, but this is not the time to turn our backs on the discipline that has helped us through the worst of the economic downturn. Let's not forget the global recession that began in 08-09 was probably the biggest economic and financial shock, let's hope the biggest financial shock we'll see in our lifetimes, and jurisdictions everywhere are struggling to recover. The U.S. peers nervously across the chasm of a fiscal cliff. Much of Europe languishes in recession. Even China, with its fast-growing middle class, saw its economic growth in 2012 decline to its lowest level since the turn of the millennium. Economists use words like weak, muddled, anemic to describe the international recovery. And we're not immune in BC. We sell our goods on the global market. We can't control international prices. That leaves us vulnerable on the revenue side of the ledger and demands extreme caution as we plan our budgets for the year ahead. When prices for resources such as coal and natural gas are down, as they are at the moment, our provincial treasury takes a hit. But that doesn't mean that we as a government are going to renege on our long-standing commitment to sound fiscal management. On the contrary, in an environment of ongoing global volatility, an environment of continuing uncertainty, we are more determined than ever to hold the line on government spending and to honor our commitment to the people of British Columbia that we will not spend more of their money than government receives. To be sure, we could take a different approach. We do actually have the option of continuing continuing to operate in a deficit position for years to come, which is precisely what a lot of other governments are doing. If we chose to, we could even roll out big new spending programs. That's not uncommon in election years. And there's always pressure on government from many fronts to increase spending in a long list of areas to try and please as many of the voters as possible. I'll tell you right now, we're not going to do that. Why? Well, I guess lots of reasons why, but as my parents used to tell me with that measure of common sense derived from their agrarian roots, because, son, we can't afford it right now. Increasing spending across the board in excess of the money taxpayers can send to government today is plainly and simply the wrong choice. Not just today, but for the future of our province and for those generations yet to come. We will not spend money we don't have. We will not leave a legacy of needless debt. To do so would be, frankly, irresponsible. And anyone looking for that approach in what is to follow is going to be disappointed. Starting today, British Columbians will once again be able to look at their children and grandchildren and know that the services we rely upon today are being paid for us today. Today, Mr. Speaker, I am presenting what we promised to the people of British Columbia and what they have worked hard to achieve: a balanced budget. In fact, we'll have a modest surplus. That doesn't mean, though, that everything from here on out is going to easy, but it does provide the firm footing and the opportunity we need to continue investing in core programs and services. With this budget, we are moving forward to increase revenues by growing our economy and creating jobs, keep spending affordable, and work in partnership with families for the most important investment of all, investing in the future of our children. Mr. Speaker, I say plainly that I recognize that given the timing of this particular budget, there will be some skepticism, certainly amongst members opposite, perhaps members of the public, about whether this is in fact a balanced budget. So let's confront that question head on. Is the budget really balanced? The answer lies in the analysis of two parts of the budget: the revenue side and the expenditure side. Both must be credible. Both must withstand scrutiny. I believe they are, and I believe they will. Over the term of our three-year fiscal plan, revenues are projected to grow by an average of 3%, and spending is projected to grow roughly half that rate, by an average of 1.5% per year. As difficult as it is not to spend all of the modest additional revenues we anticipate receiving, that is the only formula, the only approach by which a deficit can be eliminated on a sustainable basis. The end result, factoring in all of the other pieces of the budget, will be surpluses of $197 million in 13-14, $211 million the following year, and $460 million in the third year. That, Mr. Speaker, is the bottom line, our fiscal plan at its highest level. Now I'll turn to how we'd like to achieve it, starting with our work on the revenue side. At this time last year, the government had forecast a deficit of just under $1 billion for 2012-13. In fact, as members know, with declining revenues, the forecast for the deficit went up at one point as high as 1.5. Today, in the third quarter report, the deficit is estimated for 12-13 to be $1.2 billion. That's a big gap to fill. And as I've said, it won't be easy, but with the plan I'm presenting today, taking the final step towards eliminating the deficit is achievable. We expect gradual improvements in commodity prices and markets for some of our key exports over the next few years, including lumber and electricity. That will contribute to modest economic growth of 1.6% in 2013, 2.2% the following year, and projected 2.5% in 2015. These numbers are lower than the outlook provided by the BC Economic Forecast Council. Its 14 members, including some of the most respected independent economists in Canada, meet with government every year before the budget to give us their best advice. This year, for the first time, the council meeting was open to the media. They shared their advice and analysis essentially in public, ensuring transparency in that part of the process. Happily, even some members of the opposition were present. Along with a more conservative forecast for economic growth, we have built two additional layers of prudence into the budget. First, we've included a forecast allowance of $200 million in 13-14, $225 million in the following year, and $325 million in the third year to guard against revenue volatility. Secondly, the fiscal plan includes contingencies of $225 million each year to help manage unexpected pressures and fund priority initiatives that may arise. To further underscore our commitment to transparency, we engaged Dr. Tim O'Neill, a respected independent economist, to review, evaluate, and report on all of the Ministry of Finance's economic and revenue projections. He's now completed his work. As members know, he released a report to the public yesterday. And in that report, he confirmed that our processes, methodologies, assumptions, and forecasts are legitimate to the extent that projections about the future can be legitimate. Here's what he said, quote, "The general observation to be made about the assumptions that underpin the revenue forecasts is that they incorporate, for the most part, a reasonable amount of prudence, especially given the degree of uncertainty that still surrounds the economic outlook, not only in BC, but for North America and Europe and indeed the global economy." But Dr. O'Neill had a concern. Given the volatility around natural gas pricing, he has suggested that instead of accepting the average of 24 private sector forecasts, he's recommended that we plan on the basis of the lower end forecasts and assume prices for natural gas in the $1.80 to $1.90 range. That's what we've done. So we're confident that revenues will grow modestly. We're projecting growth of 4.6% in 13-14, 1.3% the following year, and 3.1% in 15-16. But that alone does not and will not be enough to meet our balanced budget targets. Therefore, we're asking business to help, consistent with a plan we put forward a year ago. In Budget 2012, the government signaled that one of the options being considered to achieve a balanced budget was to increase the general corporation income tax rate by 1 percentage point. Today, I can confirm that will happen. In fact, it will happen earlier than planned. The rate will rise to 11% effective April 1, 2013. The small business corporate income tax rate will remain unchanged, and because we've worked so hard for so long to keep taxes low, BC is still very competitive. Even with the change taking place in April, the general corporate income tax rate will still be 33% lower than it was in 2001. It will also remain amongst the lowest in the country. We'll also see a revenue improvement from adjustments to the industrial school property tax credit, which was introduced in response to the recession to help employers sustain their operations. For major industries, including sawmills, pulp mills, mines, the credit will remain unchanged. But we are beginning to scale it back for the light industry class. The value of the credit for those properties will decline from 60% to 30% in 2013 and fall to zero in 2014. The final change on the business side involves natural gas wells that qualify for the Deep Well Royalty Credit Program. We're adjusting the royalty structure and introducing a minimum amount so that revenues flow into provincial coffers sooner. Total revenues expected from these measures over the 3-year life of the fiscal plan equal about $900 million. Those extra dollars, Mr. Speaker, from business and industry will go a long way towards meeting our targets. But with this budget, we are also asking those individuals who have a little more to contribute a little more. Starting in January 2013, we will enact a temporary 2-year increase in the personal income tax rate on income above $150,000 a year. The rate will increase by 2.1 percentage points to 16.8% from 14.7% for 2014 and 2015 only. Even with this increase, BC's top marginal tax rate will still be very competitive. Secondly, to help sustain our healthcare system, MSP premiums will increase by about 4%, effective January 1, 2014. And we are increasing taxes on tobacco by $2 a carton, effective October 1st. But here's the offer. Smokers who object to paying more have time to quit. And they can, according to the surveys, 7 out of 10 smokers want to quit. We've already got the lowest smoking rates in Canada, below 15%. But smokers, if they choose, can join the over 100,000 people and sign up for BC's smoking cessation program, which is designed to help people achieve their objective of quitting. Only half those people manage to stay tobacco-free. The payoff for their health of their families, and the healthcare system itself is well worth the investment. With these tax changes, Mr. Speaker, BC will be another step closer to balancing the budget, and we will close the rest of the gap with proceeds from the sale of surplus assets, consistent with the plan we announced in Budget 2012. There are about 100 surplus properties and assets, and we're continuing a process to turn them into economic generators, providing amenities such as housing, health care, and long-term residential care on what are now, for the most part, vacant or underutilized lands. We have sales agreements in process or negotiation underway on 16 properties, including a vacant lot near the Victoria General Hospital, a large surplus parcel on Tronquil Road in Kamloops, former school board office in Surrey, a surplus parcel near the Mission Memorial Hospital, former healthcare facility in Vancouver's Grandview Woodlands neighborhood, a vacant property in Surrey, originally purchased for a hospital expansion that has now taken place at Surrey Memorial. Based on 2013 assessments, those and market appraisals, those 16 properties will provide an estimated return of $260 million. And a further 65 properties are being prepared for market. In total, we expect the sale of surplus assets will deliver a net gain over the first 2 years of the fiscal plan of approximately $625 million. With tax changes, economic growth, surplus asset sales, annual revenues will grow to $46.4 billion by the final year of the fiscal plan. And that is the story, Mr. Speaker, on the revenue side. Now let's turn to the other side of the equation, the spending side. The watchword here is discipline as we pursue the appropriate balance between providing public services and keeping those services affordable. Between 2005 and 2008, when the global and provincial economies were strong, government spending was growing by approximately 6% per year. After the worldwide recession hit, we had to scale that back because we all know what happens when you spend more money than you make. That's why we've worked so hard, especially since the recession, to keep provincial spending in check. And public sector unions have played a role. And I want to take the opportunity to publicly acknowledge the hard work, good faith, and creativity of all the parties involved in public sector bargaining. The vast majority of unions in 2010, Mr. Speaker, and in the 2010 round of contract talks, accepted 2-year agreements with net zero wage increases. Now, had we ignored the economic reality and agreed to modest annual raises of even 2% under the 2010 net zero mandate, without offsetting wages, we could be facing more than $4.3 billion in additional debt by 2016. In the coming year alone, we would have needed to find another $790 million more to support those wage increases. And quite frankly, I don't see how there would have been any way we'd be talking about a balanced budget today. Under the current 2012 cooperative gains mandate, we have reached agreements with about 2/3 of the public sector workers. Many are receiving modest wage hikes, but these are funded entirely by savings from efficiencies with no new taxpayer dollars. Along with continuing discipline on wages, we've frozen salaries for all senior managers, we're aggressively auditing commercial crowns, and we continue to cut discretionary spending in areas such as travel and administration. In 2012, those measures resulted in savings of $20 million from ministries. From 2013 onward, we expect ministry savings of $15 million and a further $20 million in savings from Crown corporations. With those efficiencies and banking that money, we can afford to maintain core services. And we will continue to see modest increases in a few important areas, including healthcare and education, the two most important public services British Columbians rely upon. Healthcare has historically accounted for the largest share of the budget, and I don't think that's likely to change anytime soon. So I'd like to take a moment and look at where we are and how we're doing as a province in the measures that matter most. We have the longest life expectancy in Canada, and if we were a country, we'd be second only to Japan in terms of life expectancy. We have the best survival rate for heart disease in Canada, the lowest incidence of cancer, and among those who do get cancer, the very best survival rates. We have amongst the healthiest people and the best health care anywhere in the world, but it comes at a cost, and that cost is increasing. It has not recently in BC and will not rise at the rate we are seeing in other jurisdictions, but we will be spending more. Over the term, the 3-year term of the fiscal plan, the Ministry of Health will receive a total of $2.4 billion in additional spending. That's a lot of money. But to put it in perspective, the average annual increase in health spending is projected to be 2.6%, significantly lower than the 6 to 8% growth we saw before the recession. We're slowing the rate of spending growth by continuing to drive improvements and seek out efficiencies in healthcare delivery. For example, in the past year alone, we've introduced a new screening program for colorectal cancer that people can complete at home without costly hospital visits or equipment. We've given nurse practitioners a wider scope of practice so hospital patients can be admitted and discharged a lot more efficiently. We've announced a new regulation to reduce the price of generic drugs, saving families and the government significant amounts of money. These are just a few examples of how we're trying to make dollars go further. Admittedly, this is in stark contrast to those who simply advocate elevating British Columbia to the highest per capita health spending in the country. Today, despite resisting the call from some quarters to be the biggest spenders in the country, and thanks to innovation and hard work from dedicated professionals, our key health outcomes, the most important measures, rank amongst the highest in the world. British Columbians also enjoy one of the world's best public education systems. Through our new education plan, we're working to ensure that students are prepared to achieve and succeed in our rapidly changing world. To support that continuing transformation, we're investing $210 million over 3 years to support the Learning Improvement Fund. Since its inception 1 year ago, the fund has provided extra support to virtually every public school in the province, with approximately 500 more teachers hired at a cost of $37 million, $17.3 million devoted to special education, increasing hours of work for more than 7,400 existing assistants and placing more than 400 new teacher assistants in schools, and $1.8 million devoted to professional development. We'll contribute $60 million to the fund in the coming year, increasing to $75 million in each of the 2 following years. And we look forward to seeing those dollars translate into better outcomes for students. We are also investing $1 million to help ensure that Students have access to the healthy foods they need for optimal growth and development. We have supported the school fruit and vegetable nutrition program since its inception as a pilot project in 2005. It now provides fresh produce to hundreds of thousands of students in 1,400 schools, helping students get a taste for healthy eating while connecting them to the BC farms that put food on our tables. Now, with additional funding, we're expanding the program through a new partnership with the BC Dairy Association, providing local milk to schools around the province. Along with higher funding for health and education, we're providing over the next 3 years $60 million to continue the 2010 Sports and Arts Legacy Program, which provides more opportunities for youth participation, $52 million to maintain frontline RCMP services, including officers hired to combat organized crime and gang activity, $18 million for the recently announced Creative Futures Initiative to help increase youth participation in the arts, $13 million to support the renewal of single-room occupancy hotels, providing a better quality of life for some of our most disadvantaged citizens, and $5 million to enhance problem gambling treatment, counseling, and prevention services. Whilst not an exhaustive list, I expect that some sectors, like the film industry, who were looking for specific initiatives, will feel overlooked. In recognizing the challenges that they and others face, I want to emphasize that our ability to do more in the future is enhanced significantly with a robust growing economy and a balanced fiscal plan, and we look forward to working with them in the future. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we will continue making targeted investments to support economic growth through a number of initiatives, including the BC Jobs Plan. As members know, the plan is a long-term initiative to make the most of BC's strategic advantages, and one key pillar is to open and expand new markets for our products. Some people still believe that we can wall ourselves off from the world, that we can somehow survive in an insulated BC-only scenario. It's just not true. Market diversification is absolutely essential to maintaining, let alone improving, our standard of living. In 2001, 70% of our exports went to one market, the US, and we were vulnerable. Any suggestion that we could reduce our trade dependency on the US was met with great skepticism. But we've done it. Trade to the US now accounts for 45% of our exports. Important to be sure, but Asia now purchases 41% of our exported goods. Exports to China were up nearly 20% in 2012. And while the share of BC exports going to India is small today, it has increased by nearly 60% last year alone. We are succeeding in diversifying our markets. We're accomplishing this by working in partnership with business and strategically investing some public dollars. Whether it's Dream Home Canada in Shanghai or a strategic marketing initiative with the Times of India Group, we are carving out a presence and gaining new footholds in new markets for British Columbia. We're opening up new opportunities for forest products, agri-foods, metals and minerals, and in the near future, natural gas. Right now, we can only sell natural gas to the US, but with the demand growth across the Pacific Rim, that's a huge incentive for us to move forward aggressively to develop liquefied natural gas using our twin advantages of a plentiful natural resource and strategic location as Canada's Pacific province. Making it possible to ship our product to those more lucrative overseas markets, that won't happen overnight, but we have made significant progress in the year since our LNG vision was articulated. Industry has responded with approximately $4 billion in natural gas-related commitments in 2012, including a plan by Shell to build LNG Canada, with joint venture partners, a partnership between Spectra Energy, the BG Group, a plan by Petronas an experienced LNG operator to establish the Pacific Northwest LNG facility, and Chevron Canada's purchase of an operating interest in the Kitimat LNG plant. In the construction phase alone, Mr. Speaker, these projects represent real jobs for BC families, real investments in BC worth billions of dollars, and ultimately, real revenue to government for deployment on behalf of British Columbians. We're also moving forward with our effort to provide more efficient permitting for water, land, and mining exploration so projects can get off the ground faster while protecting the environment, requirements for First Nations consultations. That work's paying off. For example, mineral exploration spending increased nearly 50% in 2012, and we want to keep the momentum going, Mr. Speaker.
Here.
We'll also provide nearly $4 million to the Agricultural Land Commission to speed up application reviews, support boundary reviews, and work with local governments to encourage farming. And speaking of farming, agriculture is integral to our quality of life and to the social and economic fabric of BC communities. With that in mind, last year's budget 2012, we announced a one-time support for the province's greenhouse growers. They face a distinct challenge in relation to the carbon tax. The fact that carbon dioxide is essential for plant growth. And so to help them thrive in a highly competitive market, we introduced a measure to offset their carbon tax costs for 1 year. Since that time, we have completed a comprehensive review of the tax, and today we are announcing ongoing carbon tax relief for BC's commercial greenhouse, vegetable, and flower growers. A new grant will provide relief for 80% of their carbon tax costs on certain fuels used for their greenhouse operations. We also intend to provide an exemption for farmers on the carbon tax they pay on colored motor fuel, matching the current motor fuel tax exemptions in recognition of the strong importance we all attach to maintaining a strong, competitive domestic agri-food sector.
Here.
Our review, Mr. Speaker, determined that in general the carbon tax at current rates does not appear to have a significant impact on BC's overall economic performance. However, specific sectors involved in things like refining processes and cement production continue to have concerns about their relative competitiveness. We will continue to work with them to find balanced, affordable solutions to their challenges while remaining mindful that because it is revenue neutral, the carbon tax helps us keep other taxes low. In fact, since its inception in 2008, the carbon tax has raised a total of $3.7 billion, all of which has been reinvested into tax reductions for businesses, individuals, and families. Mr. Speaker, this is an exciting time for British Columbia. We're on the brink of a resource development boom with the potential to breathe new life into dozens of communities. Right now, across BC, we have approximately $80 billion worth of major projects underway. These are happening across a whole range of economic sectors, from shipbuilding to natural gas, mining to manufacturing, transportation to commercial and residential development. Decades ago, in far more troubling times, a great statesman said, "Give us the tools, and we shall finish the job." Today, the tools we require to support this growth are skills and training. Accordingly, we are adding significantly to our skills training infrastructure, helping ensure that British Columbians can be first in line for the jobs of the future. For example, we are investing $29 million for 2 new trades training buildings and facility upgrades at Camosun College in Victoria. $28 million to expand and improve trades training facilities at Okanagan College in Kelowna. $12 million towards a new building for the Chip and Shannon Wilson School of Design at Kwantlen Polytech University in Richmond to introduce new programming in technical apparel design. Another $17 million is targeted to new skills training equipment at colleges and institutes throughout BC, and we are putting $6.3 million towards the new North Kamloops Secondary Trades and Technology Centre of Excellence. Kamloops gets everything. Along with building our capacity for training, Mr. Speaker, these new capital investments will generate new economic activity in almost every region of the province. In total, we will be making $10.4 billion worth of taxpayer-supported capital investments over the next 3 years. That includes continuing investments in more than $3 billion worth of transportation projects, with more than $800 million earmarked for public transit, $100 million for the Caribou Connector, $95 million for the Okanagan Valley Connector, $92 million for the road building portion of the Mountain Pine Beetle strategy, $30 million for the Gateway program to keep our trade with Asia flowing, and $9 million for cycling infrastructure. In the healthcare sector, we're investing $2.3 billion in capital projects, including the redevelopment of BC Children's and Women's Hospital in Vancouver, a new Surrey Memorial Hospital Emergency Department and Critical Care Tower, a new Interior Heart and Surgical Centre in Kelowna, the replacement and expansion of North Island hospitals, the redevelopment at East Kootenay Hospital in Cranbrook, the replacement of Lakes District Hospital in Burns Lake, the replacement of Queen Charlotte Haida Gwaii Hospital. Wow. We will invest $1.5 billion in capital projects for the education sector, including new or replacement schools in Langford, Oliver, Chilliwack, Coquitlam, and a seismic upgrade at Wellington Secondary School and Nanaimo. And importantly, Mr. Speaker, even with these new investments, debt will remain affordable. Debt's growth will slow as we return to a balanced budget, and the ratio of taxpayer supported to debt to GDP, a key measure of affordability, will peak, as we projected in last year's budget, at 18.3% in 2014-15, and then it will begin to decline. And because our revenues will outpace spending, we will have an opportunity, once we're into those surplus budgets, to do a little more to keep life affordable for BC families. Let's talk about that for a moment, Mr. Speaker, because that's the whole reason we're so intent on balancing the budget and building the economy, because together they provide the strong foundation families and businesses need to prosper in the years ahead. For example, our prudent fiscal management continues to earn us a rare AAA credit rating, the highest rating available. Now, look, I realize most people don't sit around the kitchen table and worry about the province's credit rating. They do worry, however, when more and more of their tax dollars are spent on servicing debt. Our hard-earned AAA credit rating has saved taxpayers millions of dollars in debt servicing costs, allowing us to put those dollars into vital public services. With Budget 2012, we introduced 3 new measures to help keep life affordable for families: the first-time new home buyers bonus, the seniors home renovation tax credit, and the children's fitness and arts tax credits. Since Budget 2012, we have also improved income and disability assistance to help vulnerable individuals and families attain better financial outcomes, help people with disabilities lead more independent lives, and help people capable of work avoid the cycle of income assistance dependence. We're continuing to work on poverty reduction strategies, beginning with pilots in 7 communities recommended by local leaders. And we launched a new employment program to help more British Columbians find and keep the jobs they need to support themselves and their families. With today's budget, Mr. Speaker, we are building on that with a number of targeted measures to make life more affordable for families. First, we'll continue to provide tax credits benefiting seniors and children. We are investing over the next 3 years approximately $81 million for the seniors home renovation tax credit and $27 million for the children's fitness and arts tax credits. The first-time new home buyers bonus, which remains in effect until March 31, is on track to help more than 1,000 individuals and families afford a new home. And with this budget, we're taking further steps to help owners when their costs can be highest by providing the option of property tax deferral to a wider range of families. Seniors in the province have had this option since 1974. It lets them defer their property taxes until their home is sold so they can keep a little more of their income every year. In 2010, we expanded this option to include families supporting children under the age of 18. Today, I can confirm that we are also including families supporting their children attending an educational institution and those supporting adult sons and daughters who have disabilities. We're also making a small but significant change to the legislation governing the property transfer tax, which has affected some families unfairly. That legislation will be amended to clarify its intent so the tax will generally not apply to family farms passed from one generation to the next. I want to speak for just a moment, Mr. Speaker, about the power of savings. Saving is about prioritizing for the future. It's hard to save. I find it hard to save. There's always seems to be a more immediate need. It's virtually impossible to save if you're spending more than you make. All of this is true for families, and it's also true for government. But by taking some modest steps today to save and plan for the future, we can have a dramatic positive impact on the most important investment of all: caring for children and improving their future prospects. In 2007, when admittedly times were a little better, the government started saving. Since January the 1st, 2007, we have been investing $1,000 for every child born in the province. Today, for each of those children, that amount has grown to about $1,200. It's time to unleash the full force of that savings potential by forging a partnership with parents and families. Effective immediately, Mr. Speaker, every family with a child under 7 who meets some basic residency rules will qualify for a one-time BC Training and Education Savings Grant. Once the child turns 6 and enters an elementary school program, we will transfer $1,200 to the family to help with the cost of studies or skills training after high school. All you'll need to qualify for the $1,200 grant is to have a registered education savings plan in place before your child's 7th birthday. If you already have one, great. If not, the sooner you set one up, the sooner savings can begin to accumulate. Families won't be required to put in their own contributions to get the BC grant, but we would certainly encourage them to do so. Because RESPs harness the power of interest over time, allowing your investments to grow tax-free until your son or daughter starts a post-secondary program. The new BC Training and Education Savings Grant will give your child a boost, and families with a registered savings plan can also qualify for significant additional federal grants. Even with a modest family contribution of $10 a month, a child who's starting school this September could have over $4,000 in their RESP by the time they graduate from high school. Enough to get a good start in any post-secondary program, whether it's vocational, skills, college, or university. At $50 a month for families that can do that, the equivalent amount would be $12,000, Mr. Speaker. We have to stop thinking of education as just K-12. By 2020, almost 80% of new job openings will demand at least some post-secondary training, and that proportion is growing all the time. We need to accept and plan for that reality, and while we do not support the concept of free tuition, we do agree that government has a role alongside families in removing financial impediments to higher education and skills training. That's why in 2012 we introduced changes to help low-income students and their families. We estimate presently the province will pay down just under $1 million in student loan principal for up to 17,000 students by the end of this year and forego about $4 million in interest payments. In the coming year, some 20,000 students will benefit as we pay down about $2 million in principal and $4.5 million in interest on student loans. That'll make life a little more affordable, and now with the BC Training and Education Savings Grant, higher education and skills training for the children of today, the students of tomorrow, will be more accessible than ever before. And what about the shorter term? That's a question many parents may be asking. Saving for the future is an excellent idea, but what about the more immediate challenges? With this budget, we're setting out a plan to address those as well. As our economy picks up steam, as we continue to reap the rewards of prudent fiscal management, we will be able to invest an additional $76 million over 3 years to improve families' access to quality early learning and childcare supports. Of that total, $32 million will support the creation of new childcare spaces, $37 million is targeted to improving the quality of childcare and early learning services, and another $7 million will be invested to improve coordination of early childhood development programs and childcare services. These investments build on the $1 billion a year the province currently spends on early learning, childhood development, and childcare services, and the $129 million invested annually in full-day kindergarten. In addition, we are investing $146 million in a new provincial tax credit starting in 2015. The new BC Early Childhood Tax Benefit will provide up to $660 a year for children in British Columbia under the age of 6 to help families with the cost of their care. Approximately 180,000 families will be eligible to receive the benefit. Most will receive the full amount, while those with family incomes between $100,000 and $150,000 a year will receive a partial benefit. That will help them pay for childcare or any of the other expenses that come with the territory when you're raising a young family. And the third initiative to help keep life affordable for families isn't strictly speaking a budget measure, and it doesn't appear in the budget bill, but it is important because it will help a lot of families save for the future, and saving isn't just for 6-year-olds. Some individuals are fortunate to have good pension plans, but those who are self-employed or work for small businesses don't have access to the same opportunities. In fact, it's estimated that just 1 of every 3 BC workers belongs to a registered workplace pension plan. It's difficult to save for retirement on your own, especially when you're raising a family. Too often, parents are forced to choose between the needs of today and the needs of tomorrow, and Mr. Speaker, we intend to give those families a break. During this session, we will introduce measures that will make it easier for working families to save for retirement and provide an additional optional safety net for those who cannot currently access group pension plans. We've worked with the federal government and will create a mechanism by which thousands more British Columbians will have the opportunity to pool their retirement savings with a regulated pension program and benefit from economies of scale closer to those sustaining large-scale pension plans. We'll provide the House with details in the coming weeks. It's one more way we're working with the people of BC to build a strong, secure future for the province. I cautioned at the outset that achieving our goal of a balanced budget wouldn't leave a lot of room for massive, widespread spending announcements. As I draw my remarks to a close, Mr. Speaker's members will, I hope, at a minimum, accept the veracity of that statement. What we've done today is lay out a modest, responsible, and achievable plan to guide BC through the next few years of continuing global economic uncertainty with a balanced budget, affordable spending, and as the economy strengthens, some new supports to help make life more affordable for families. It may not be your classic pre-election budget. Would it just be easier to run a deficit? Absolutely. When it comes to exercising spending discipline, as most parents can attest, it's not saying yes that's difficult, it's saying no. It's always possible to put off those difficult decisions. It's always possible to say, oh, well, we'll balance the budget next year, tomorrow. The problem is that too often, for too many governments, tomorrow never comes. Ever since this government first came to office, we focused on delivering sound fiscal management. In 2002, when we tabled our first full budget, we were facing a structural deficit of over $4 billion. We worked hard to turn that around, and Mr. Speaker, we succeeded. By 2005, the budget was balanced, and we kept it balanced. In fact, we recorded record surpluses until we were hit by the impact of what's now being called the Great Recession. We went into deficit in 2009 because, given what was happening around us in the world, it was better than the alternatives. Instead of making massive program cuts or implementing big tax hikes, we spent some money to help people through the worst of the recession. And that was the right choice. It wasn't a happy choice. It was the right choice. We knew it wouldn't be easy to get back to surplus budgets, but we committed then, just as we did with our first full budget in 2002, to do the necessary work to get our financial house in order. And just as we did in 2005, we stand today on the brink of delivering a series of back-to-back surplus budgets. That will give our province an edge in attracting new investment in a still uncertain global economy, and we can look forward to a future of growth, opportunity, and prosperity. It will be a future where parents have more support to care for their children, where the education system is able to prepare them for the jobs and the challenges that lie ahead for all of us, where every child will have the opportunity to graduate from high school with money in the bank for further education or skills training. And as the economy continues going stronger, a future where our young people have more options and more opportunities than ever before to build their lives and careers, families right here in BC. That's the future we're working towards. And that future now includes balanced budgets. Starting today, as British Columbians travel to other parts of Canada, they will be able to say with pride, I come from BC, where the government doesn't spend more money than I send it, where the government doesn't burden future generations with the cost of programs being delivered today. I think I've sat here, Mr. Speaker, for at least 19 budgets over the years, and I've heard them characterized in a variety of ways: prudent or reckless, frugal or extravagant. In presenting this one to the House for its consideration, I observe with a modest measure of pride that it is, in every sense of the word, balanced. Thank you.